started. This is the Red Ticket Blues podcast. I am Brian Buckley. This is being recorded on May 25th to hit the internets on May 26th. Remember, you can listen to this show on every podcasting venue imaginable, like iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, YouTube, and on Google Play. And if you want to see me daily, it's on Twitter, at BrianBuck13 and at Red Ticket Blues. So it's another weekly edition of the Thursday Talk. We have a sports media guest, and this week is Jared Diamond. He covers the New York Yankees for the Wall Street Journal. And I was able to talk to Jared about, covering the Yankees. He previously covered the Mets, some of the similarities, the differences covering the team, the recent Yankee hot streak, a few other issues in baseball, and a little bit about the man himself. So let's take a listen.
He covers the Yankees and Major League Baseball for the Wall Street Journal. He's Jared Diamond. Jared, welcome to the Red Ticket Blues podcast.
Hey, great to be here.
All right, thanks for having. Thank you for being here. So let's talk Yankees here. 6-game winning streak, and because everything in society is beyond reactionary with every win or loss, how should Yankee fans feel right now? Should we be contacting Ticketmaster to print out those playoff tickets, chalk it up to the subpar competition, or somewhere in between?
I would say cautiously optimistic if I were a Yankee fan, how I feel right now. Look, the team is not as bad as what they showed in April. I think everyone knew that, has known that the entire time. Yes, it's a flawed team. They're not perfect. They may not be a World Series contender, but they're not a last-place team either. So it's starting to even back out. They're playing a lot better. They beat up on some teams that weren't that great. The Blue Jays have struggled. The A's have struggled. But that's what it's going to take. The question is, did they dig themselves too big of a hole to seriously get back into the division race with the Red Sox and Orioles, who both look really good? But the Yankees really can't control that. If they keep winning, if they keep playing the way they're playing, I wouldn't be surprised if they make it interesting as we get into the summer, because they do have a lot of talent.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to think you're correct there. I think it's probably going to be somewhere, around like it was last year. I mean, I think they're going to be competing for that second wild card, maybe. I mean, maybe I'm being cautiously optimistic even saying that. But we'll have to see, like you said. Before this year, you were covering the Mets for the Journal. Now, to fans, this may seem like a cruel twist of fate. One team on the precipice of the World Series, another sort of, like we just talked about, teetering on the edge. I mean, was this a tough transition, or is this, just part of the job?
It's a tough transition just because I had a real comfort level with the Mets. I'd been there for 3 seasons. I knew everybody. Everybody knew me, players, organization, front office, manager, et cetera. And switching to the Yankees is really like starting fresh, where you don't know anybody, nobody knows you. And the Yankees in particular are just a very difficult team to jump onto the beat, just because of, one, the amount of media that covers them every single day, 2, the experience of the other beat reporters. There's a lot of beat guys on the Yankees who've been doing this for a decade or more on the same team, so they have a lot of institutional knowledge. And also just the Yankees are the Yankees. They have a certain aura about them, which often makes them a little bit tougher to cover. They're not quite as open as the other teams, especially the players are generally veterans. They're older, as opposed to the Mets, who are a very young, sort of impressionable and fun group. The Yankees just aren't that. So it's definitely a challenge. It's something totally new. Effectively, I didn't quite realize how much this would feel like my first year covering baseball again. It really is a lot different, but it's also been a fun challenge.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I could see the Yankees being very rigid and parochial to a certain extent, and yeah, the Mets team, they do a lot of fun things where you see a lot of Yankee fans saying, well, that looks too fun. We don't do that here. So I could just imagine as a beat reporter that it probably works the same way covering the team.
Yeah, the Yankees are not a fun team. I don't mean that as a criticism. It's by design. They are very businesslike. They believe that the fun is in winning, and if they win, then people will have fun. And maybe that's true. Maybe the Mets are the way they are because they've just been bad for so long. Most of their history, they've been a bad team. So I understand why the Yankees do things the way they do them, and for a lot of people, it's probably great. For me, the way I cover the team is a little different than some of the other reporters. I'm looking for sort of offbeat, fun angles, and the Yankees definitely make that tougher. But certainly, not impossible.
Right. You've covered both teams. You're from New York. You love baseball. So be honest. Who did you root for growing up?
I get this question all the time, and now I've covered both teams, so I guess it's okay to finally share. I think people now know I did actually root for the Yankees when I was a kid. Really I was 8 years old in 96, so that was really when it all started, 95, 96. Really from then up to 2001, obviously the great years with the Yankees. After 2001, going to 2002, I was on 14, 15. It was a little different from that point forward. I wasn't quite as into the Yankees. It wasn't really their fault. I was just growing up a little bit.
Right.
Maybe the teams also just weren't as exciting to me. They started bringing in all these free agents as opposed to the more homegrown, scrappy guys they had in the late 90s, who I just thought were a lot easier to root for than.
Are you trying to tell me Kevin Brown and Jarrett Wright? You can get behind that? That was a lot of fun, right?
Right, Jared. Look, and not all the guys they brought in were tough to root for. I think most Yankee fans like Jason Giambi a lot. He kind of had a different personality, but it wasn't really. It didn't quite feel the same when all of a sudden Mike Messina and Gary Sheffield were the top players. And then I ended up covering the Mets for 3 years, and I really gained an appreciation of that organization, and especially their fans, who are unlike the other fan base I've ever seen, and I imagine unlike any fan base in sports, period, with just how intense and passionate they are. It really is remarkable.
You know, sports writers, many times, since they say whenever they could talk, that's when they knew they wanted to be a sports writer. Is that the same? Are you in the same boat there?
For the most part, yeah. I loved baseball growing up. It was by far my favorite sport. It was really the only sports growing up I really watched were baseball and basketball. We didn't really watch football in my house growing up, probably because my dad wasn't a fan, so I never got into it. So I think I realized pretty quickly that I wasn't going to play baseball professionally. Unfortunately, I tried, not very well.
We all did.
But, I did my best. My best wasn't very good. So that's sort of when I knew that I wanted to try to go into this. And I've been very fortunate to this point that I've been able to accomplish what really was a dream to cover baseball. This is not my fourth season. I'm only 28 years old, so I've gotten to do it when I was younger than I anticipated, which has been a blast. But yeah, I knew probably by the time I was in middle school that this is what I was going to pursue. It's this point has worked out.
You know, let's talk about some of that writing here. You wrote you wrote about the entire frantic procedure the Trenton Thunder endured yesterday, Tuesday, when they got late word that Alex Rodriguez would be suiting up for them. So how intense was it for the entire front office there to accommodate everyone for the arrival of A-Rod?
Well, it was definitely unexpected for them because, just on Sunday, the last time the Yankees played, Joe Girardi is telling everybody that they're not having Alex Rodriguez go for a rehab assignment, that they're going to activate him from the DL on Tuesday. And all of a sudden, it's Tuesday morning at 10:30, 10:45, and the Yankees are calling down to Trenton saying, oh, by the way, A-Rod's coming, and he's coming today. He's batting third, so have fun. So there was definitely a scramble. Look, this is a big deal for a minor league team to have Alex Rodriguez showing up for a game. It looks like probably 2 games, supposed to be there again Wednesday. They went into complete drop everything mode, all hands on deck. Let's get this ready from a marketing standpoint. We got to get a graphic on the billboard outside. We have to send emails to season ticket holders and fans and put it on Twitter and Facebook and really just blast this out there. Get everybody in the organization on the phones to field ticket orders and requests. A lot of people had never tickets ever before were on the phones that day. Pretty much everyone in the organization had dropped everything to just make Alex Rodriguez the focus because they knew they were going to have, if not a sellout, close to it. And it worked out great. Like, he showed up. The fans were lining up outside the ballpark an hour and a half before the game to see him because, honestly, who wouldn't? You get a chance to go Rodriguez take 3 at-bats for $12 in a great seat and great view right up there, right close to the park. It's a great opportunity.
Carlos Beltran right now, he's occupying A-Rod's old stomping grounds in the designated hitter position. There's lots of theories going around why A-Rod was playing in Trenton last night. So Does this quick stop for him there? Does this have anything to do with Beltran continuing to solidify those hot numbers he has, or is it just simply A-Rod getting some rehab in?
I don't know if they sent him to Trenton because of Carlos Beltran, but certainly the Beltran situation is something that's going to need to be monitored. Because like you said, Beltran has been so phenomenal ever since Alex went down in the DH spot, and really the Yankees have looked really good without Rodriguez. His absence helped the Yankees defense because it moved Aaron Hicks into an everyday role in right field, so it really improved their outfield defenses because Beltran at this point in his career, while still an excellent hitter, clearly really can't run around the outfield at least every single day.
He's a statue.
Yes, so the Yankees really have at least two guys who should be, if not full-time DHs, close to it. I think you would get away with Beltran in the outfield a couple days a week, but certainly you don't want him out there 6 days a week.
I got to ask you this, and a nation is on the edge of their seats, and you've tweeted about this before, and that is, do you have any idea exactly what A-Rod Corp is, and how can we be a part of it?
I am dying to find out what A-Rod Corp is. I go to that website every couple of weeks.
Yeah, so do I.
To see if it's been updated, and it still says under construction. They'll be updated soon.
Thank you for visiting.
I wish Alex Rodriguez were around and healthy and in a better mood so I could ask him about this. So hopefully he's back from his injury, hits a bunch of home runs, and everybody's happy, and then maybe he'll expound upon the wonders of A-Rod Corp. Because frankly, he's selling those T-shirts because everybody seems to want one.
I mean, the amount of money he could make on this, the amount of money he could make on it and not even tell anyone what it is astounding. So I'm dying to know, too. I'm in the same boat. As we all know, you work for the Wall Street Journal, and it's known as a financial publication. And you even write in your Twitter profile, yes, the Wall Street Journal has a sports section. So are there challenges, and if so, what are the challenges of writing for maybe just a non-traditional sports outlet, so to speak?
Well, fortunately, at this point, I've been at the Journal for 5.5 years. And when I first started, the sports page was still really new. It was, maybe just a year or two old. And at that point, every single time you called somebody with a sports question, you would get this sort of side-eyed Wall Street Journal response. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, I don't get that really anymore. And I like to believe, I hope it's because the work we've done for the last all these years have been good. It's gotten a lot of attention, and people now recognize that not only do we have a sports page, but we have a really good sports page, and they understand what we're trying to do, which is cover sports in a different way than really anybody else is. Working at the Wall Street Journal is an amazing opportunity because people will answer the phone when you call. We don't cover sports typically. It's not our bread and butter, but still the Wall Street Journal. We still have a humongous reach, and people respect it and want to think of it. So it's just great to be able to call people and say, I'm with the Wall Street Journal, because all of a sudden people want to talk to you. And as a reporter, that's really all you could ask for.
Absolutely. It's a respected name. And just because people are going to the Wall Street Journal for, financial information doesn't mean that they don't enjoy reading about sports and reading about sports there. So
yeah, that's what we've seen also, is that Journal readers are sports fans too. They may not be the kind of sports fan that need to know or want or care about knowing about the third string shortstop in AAA and who gets sent down when another random prospect gets called up. But it doesn't mean they don't watch the games and don't care. They just want something that's different and interesting.
Now you're covering the beat. You're covering the beat of a professional team. It's sometimes, maybe in fans' eyes, sort of glorified as this once-in-a-lifetime experience, which it is, but glorified for even more stuff. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the book Season in Hell by Mike Shropshire when he covers the Rangers in the 70s, but he made it seem to be some sort of party as well. So what is the Jared Diamond experience like covering the beat on home games and away?
Well, definitely not a party. I think maybe it used to be.
Right.
I think it was probably more like that in the 70s. It's not quite like that anymore. I think the relationship between the teams and the media has just changed so much over the last few decades that it's not nearly as cushy as it once was. Not too long ago, baseball beat guys would travel on the team charter to games. That is not only not the case now, it never will be the case again. So it's certainly not a party, but it is a lot of fun. The road, especially, the access is better on the road. There's fewer reporters. The players are generally more around, a little more at ease. There's not as many places for them to hide. So I really like going on the road for that reason, because you get to actually talk to these guys in a way you don't necessarily know. But like the downside to that is that you have to be on the road. The last 2 years I've been away from home 150 nights out of the year.
Wow.
Now, this year I'm cutting back a little bit, maybe to 100 or so, but maybe 90, but it's still a lot. You know, it's half the year, or a third of the year, whatever it is. It's a lot of nights to be away, so that's sort of the trade-off. But you just can't complain about it, because I am getting paid to travel around and watch baseball, which who wouldn't view that as a dream?
That is a total dream of highest magnitude. I completely agree. Now, you also deal with Major League Baseball issues, not just the Yankees. Now, I realize the game is a business and people are coming and going all the time, but something that was been brought up recently, but at this moment, there are no Latino managers in a sport where 28% are Latino. Now, is this a problem, or do you think this is a very minute, exact snapshot of what we're looking at the moment?
I do believe that it's a problem, and I don't mean that I believe that teams are racist, that teams are intentionally not hiring Latino managers. Even if I thought that, I wouldn't have any reason to believe that. I don't know the people who make these decisions in any meaningful way, at least on most teams. But I do believe it's not emphasized enough. I don't know if teams recognize what the value could be of having a manager who speaks Spanish, who could really relate to half of the room or a third of the room. Like you said, I do believe that in a league where almost 30% of the players are Latino or Hispanic, that management just naturally should reflect that. Right now, it doesn't. It hasn't for a while. And I would just implore owners, not that any of them are probably listening to this, but if they were, if I had a chance to ever talk to them.
They all listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
Come on, stop
that
it.
They should at least consider the benefits just on a sheer competitive level of having a Hispanic manager, because there is, in many ways, a divide in a lot of clubhouses between the Spanish-speaking players and the English-speaking players. And I give the Spanish-speaking players a ton of respect for trying to learn English. They put more effort into it than I ever would to try to learn Spanish. They don't have to, but they do it because they believe that it's the right thing to do, that it's helpful. But imagine that you have a manager who not only speaks good English, but speaks fluent Spanish and can now really communicate with all of his players. We always talk about how the primary job of a manager is to communicate. Well, look, Joe Girardi really can't communicate in a perfect way with a lot of his players. It's not, there's the Japanese players, in the case of Masahiro Tanaka, but the Spanish players. And look, he does his best. I'm sure Girardi has picked up in Spanish. There are translators that could help. But it's really not the same as being able to have a fluent conversation. That's what some of these potential Hispanic Latino managers could do.
That's the way I've always looked at it. I mean, if you're going to just take one element of that entire Latino manager experience, the idea that they could communicate with someone else, just someone, or whoever it may be, whether it's black, white, Hispanic, but someone who can speak both languages, and obviously in many cases that's going to be a Hispanic manager, but just exactly to have an edge up on everyone, to be able to just communicate on every level. I don't understand why that isn't emphasized more. But again, this could be something that we may see going forward. There's been some outspoken people about it. Carlos Delgado recently was talking about it. So we'll see what happens. People do get fired, so that should be happening in the next few months. So, like I mentioned, you covered the Mets before this year. Now, you talked about a few of the differences between the Mets and the Yankees. What would be the most glaring? You may have already answered it, but what is the most glaring with the two teams?
Just the overall atmosphere around the room, and I do think that that's largely, at least in large part because of the age of the players. I think it makes a big difference when you have a room that's dominated by veterans, like the Yankees have, and a room. It's just a different atmosphere. The young players are just, they haven't been around the block as much. They haven't dealt with the media as much, and it's just a little bit more fun. Even the veterans the Mets had they kind of fit into that culture. Guys like Michael Kadire last year, Curtis Granderson. Where the Yankees, like I said before, it is very businesslike. They show up, they come to work. Everyone's very polite, very nice. There's really no one in the Yankees clubhouse that's rude or hard to talk to or difficult to talk to. Maybe Alex is a little tough to track down, but when you do get him, very nice. I'll answer your questions. But you don't get that same personal relationship. At least I haven't yet. Maybe that'll change with the Yankees as you had with the Mets. But I just don't think the Yankees players value that or want it. They want to come in, they want to get dressed, they want to go out to work, play the game, play hard, hopefully win, and then go home to their families. And I have no problem with that. I understand they're older, in a different phase of life. A lot of them have kids, a lot of them have multiple kids, but it definitely changes the experience as the reporter.
Now here is the speaking of reporters and communicating with them or lack of communicating with them, it's the $1 million question. What is wrong with Matt Harvey right now, in your opinion?
I wish I knew. I feel like no one knows, right? Because they find out a way to stop it.
The opinion I continue to hear on sports radio, which I thought was insane when I first heard it, but it seems to be gaining steam. You'll probably dismiss this, is the fact that he's not getting the same adrenaline from dipping tobacco. Is that just ridiculous? Are we really reaching here, or it's got to be more than that, right?
I can't imagine. I actually haven't heard that. That's kind of interesting. It shows people really grasping for anything at this point.
Well, it's WFAN, it's sports radio, so I mean, there's a lot of grasping.
Look, it's all these guys in New York are really not supposed to be dipping at home.
Right.
Are not supposed to be dipping anymore. I haven't seen anyone else, any other former dippers, all of a sudden lose their edge. Look, he's not throwing as hard. I don't know what's wrong with him, but it's concerning. It was getting to the point where you start to get worried. For the first month or a few weeks, you kind of say, all right, it'll turn around. But, we're now at the end of May. It's not that early anymore. We're more, at least like a quarter of a way through his starts or so. More than a third. Like, I don't know. How many starts do he have? Do he have like 10 starts already?
Something like that,
Yeah, so he's close to a third of his way through his starts, and it's been just horrendous. They got to figure it out. It's definitely a problem.
Where do you think they go from here? I mean, at the time of this recording, there really hasn't been any decision. I mean, is he sent to the minors? Do they make up a phony injury? Do they keep throwing him out there? What do you think?
I can't imagine he makes his next start. Now, I have no real knowledge of what's going on because I'm not there anymore, but I can't imagine he makes his next start. Just the way the quotes, the way they've been talking, they seem just pretty resigned to the fact they got to do something. I don't know if they send him to the doctor and put him on the DL with a bruised ego, or if they send him down to. I don't know. I can't imagine Matt Harvey getting sent down to the minor leagues.
I know, but it's hard to fathom.
But it's very strange. It's also just kind of upsetting because I, like everyone else, any other baseball fan, was really looking forward to seeing this dynamic, unbelievable Mets rotation with all these great guys. And really, two of them, and Syndergaard and Matz, have lived up. Even DeGrom, I know there's been a lot of talk about his velocity. He's been pretty good, too, for the most part. But it's a head-scratcher.
It is. It really is. And you know what? I want to thank you, Jared, for coming on the Red Ticket Blues podcast, where a lot of baseball left to be played. But before you leave to play us out, I have 3 quick questions for you. You ready?
Go for it.
All right. In your experience on the beat, what is the most underrated city to visit?
Underrated city. I feel like everybody says Pittsburgh. This is like the most common answer, that Pittsburgh's the most underrated city. But my problem with that answer, I think that so many people have said it, that it's no longer underrated.
Right.
That it's just properly rated, that as not being bad. So I'm not going to say that because I don't want to fall into that cliche. I like Milwaukee.
Really?
A lot, actually. I do. It's right on the river. It's kind of small, but there's a nice little river walk area. There's a lot of live music there in the summer. They have the music festivals. Seems like the whole summer, at least every time I've been there, it's been going on. So Milwaukee, definitely a fun place. Only an hour drive from Chicago. Definitely recommend it.
I've been to Milwaukee once, and I went to a Brewers game. I will say this: they encourage tailgating there. So they have actually designated tailgating areas that say tailgate here, and they encourage it. So that's always good for any baseball fans going to Milwaukee.
Yes, I like that too.
Number 2, how will Ghostbusters 3 fare in the theaters?
You know, I'm going to have a really hot take and say it's actually going to do well.
Whoa.
And the movie won't be, and I'm going to say the movie won't be as bad as people think. And I only say that because people think it's going to be such a train wreck.
That's right.
That I just can't believe it could be as bad as people think it's going to be. So it's going to be a pleasant surprise.
I think that's
just because expectations are so low.
I think that's a perfect take because you're right. When I first saw it, I said that is going to be the worst movie ever, and then you're right. Nothing can be that bad with the expectations that's been given. You're right. And
I like those people. I like the actors in it. They're all good, so it can't be that terrible.
And number 3 is Carlos Beltran, a Hall of Famer.
Yes. Unequivocally, yes. I am very much on the Carlos Beltran
First ballot?
Hall of Fame train. I don't know. I think this whole first ballot thing is silly. Either look, to me, if you think he's a Hall of Famer, the first ballot, the second ballot, or the other way around. So I don't really get into all that. But yes, I would vote for him. He's one of 5 players in history to have 400 homers and 300 steals. The other ones are among the all-time greatest players. Yes, he's a Hall of Famer to me.
There you go. He is Jared Diamond. He covers the New York Yankees for the Wall Street Journal and Major League Baseball for the Wall Street Journal. You can follow him on Twitter at Jared Diamond. Jared, thank you very much for being on the Red Ticket Blues podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So that was Jared Diamond. Great stuff from the man who covers the New York Yankees for the Wall Street Journal. Interesting, funny, great guest. And I hope you all enjoyed it. There's other guests you can listen to. Go back in the archives, take a look, and you can find all of those podcasts on iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Stitcher, YouTube, and on Google Play. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at BrianBuck13 and at Red Ticket Blues. And, you know, if you really like the podcast, then go subscribe to it. Subscribe on any of those venues I already listed. And if you really, really like it, why don't you leave a review or even a 5-star rating, because it helps promote the show. And next time you see somebody, tell them about the show. Tell them I have a great podcast I listen to. And they'll say, I don't care. But you have to keep pushing the issue until you tell them. And then they say, okay, just why don't you go stand over there? I don't want to talk to you anymore. But you got to do it. So, hope everyone enjoyed it. Talk to you next week. With all that being said, I'm out of here.